Hello there, welcome to another set of shows. I should say straight off the bat that I'll be doing shows next week, but there's going to be a few weeks where I won't be doing shows. But stuff going on in my life I have to deal with. So it's just a case of I won't have time to do the shows then, so I'll I'll do them later on in September, probably. Is when I'll probably start again. So just a warning that I'll be a few weeks where I'm not going to be doing much. So that's that. I do have quite a few ones to do this week. Starting off with two films in the cinema, The Meg 2 and Gran Turismo. Now, these are both films you can now see in the cinema. They're fairly easy to access. I think the Gran Turismo doesn't come out in America for another week or two, but I'm not quite sure when it comes out in America. We got it in Britain early. So there's that. The one time we get something early. So both films are very enjoyable for different reasons. Now, Gran Turismo is the saner one, and the Meg 2 is the insane one. So I'll start with the Meg 2 because it's more insane. Now, the Meg 2 is a kind of film that's so completely insane because I think the director and actors all realize the script's terrible and stupid and very mediocre. You know, some bits are absolutely terrible, other bits are very mediocre, but the script itself doesn't really hold together. I think everyone involved understood that the script had lots of problems, so you can either, you know, if you can't improve it, you can go all in insanity and make everything just much crazier. And that's what they did. They had Ben Wheatley, who recently did Into the Earth, which was wonderful, and he's done a lot of British films. He's a director with a lot of talent. So this is his first blockbuster, and it's done very well. So hopefully it'll give him money to go and do other films he wants to do. And it's a Jason Statham film, and Statham was obviously in the joke. I mean, it's one of those things that's just so obvious. Like he gets what film he's in really early on. He gets he's doing a self parody in some ways, but you also have to keep it realistic enough for the joke to keep working. So the people involved seem to understand they've got a script with some terrible ideas, with some other ideas that are maybe not so great. There's nothing in this script that should have, in a sane world, have been put forward into film. It feels like a script for something you'd see in like a sci-fi channel or something. But some of the things, imagine when the script was done by an auteur who is taking the mickey, his tongue's fully in cheek, and he's got a movie star to help him. That's what the film is. And it is gloriously stupid. It is wonderfully stupid, and it's so in the joke that it's a delight. I took my nephew to see it, and we had a whale of a time. We so much enjoyed it. I mean, there's a bit near the end where one of the Megs get killed. Because there's multiple Megs this time. There's just one, there's multiple of them. And there's a big giant octopus as well, all coming from the ocean floor, attacking tourists at the end of the film. And the final way to kill the final Meg is so outrageously stupid and wonderful. My nephew was laughing his head off with joy because it was like you could not believe it. The film had gone this far. This is a film you'd wished that Jurassic World Dominion had been, because it's just as stupid as Jurassic World Dominion, but it's done with gusto. It's done with let's have some fun with this nonsense. And there's a real joy in how ridiculous they can make it and how they could, even in normal scenes where they're doing the exposition stuff, they're pushing it as far as they can go into tongue-in-cheek. They're really pushing it. They're, whenever there's a suspense angle, they're really upping it the way that Brian De Palma used to up it in some of the 80s, where it's like we know that where we're going. Let's have some fun with it. That kind of devilish humor of like, we know it's ridiculous. Sometimes this is ridiculous, but that's part of the joy of it. So Wheatley actually always does all the genre stuff just a little bit too much, just constantly a little bit too much, which is perfect. So by the time you get to the end, and you're well in the joke, so it's slow build. It starts out kind of a typical ridiculous blockbuster, and then 2 minutes in, they have a rescue scene with on a plane that is so completely stupid, so completely ridiculous that the film is saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the movie. And if you don't like this, you can't see that this is hilariously funny, you're not going to like the movie. Because it's like, it's so over the top what they do this thing. It's so utterly stupid. And the film absolutely owns the fact it's utterly stupid. The way that a lot of filmmakers, like this is a Michael Bay film, he would try and make us feel serious if it was the most amazing thing ever. And this film is, nope, we're playing into the, we know, we really know. The writers probably thought this was cool. It's not, it's stupid. And he just plays it up. Every exposition scene during the early first third is just slightly too much. It's just slightly self-aware. Like, we're setting this stuff up. And then when everything goes wrong, everything's been set up in a way that's kind of clunky to get them from A to B. And again, the film knows that this is going to happen. This is how these films work. People have to behave stupidly to get into the plot place to get the rest of the film to work. And again, it just sends it up like, yeah, we know. We're just going to do this. We're just going to keep going with this nonsense. This is what we're doing. And that's why it's so enjoyable. It's like, yeah, we know. And then when the first set of action scenes happen, it's like, okay, we're going to start killing people off pretty quick in pretty brutal ways. And heads exploding and, gratuitous deaths. And there's one bit in the middle where there's a fight scene in an underwater base that's absolutely Temple of Doom. They just threw it in there because they want to do a Temple of Doom tribute. And it's like, it's wonderful because it's like, yep, it's Paris telling you don't take it seriously. There's all these creatures underwater which they have to avoid. And a sequence where you wish was longer because you're feeling this where the budget was cut a little bit, because there's a sequence where they have to go walk along for 2 kilometers along the water floor with limited air and with lots of creatures around them, and it's a bit quick, and you wish there was more, and you're feeling that it was like cut the budget there to get to the money to do the ending, basically. Which is a fair trade-off, but that's what it would have been a really cool scene if they actually expanded it a bit more. But they still have lots of fun with that, even though you wish that a bit was longer. And they have some wonderful fun with just the insanity of some of the science they try and suggest is real. This is a film made by people who'd seen The Best and Leviathan and all those films from the late 80s, underwater films, and their various rip-offs going forward. Like, understands every convention, and also understands when it's Teen and Mickey. There's a sequence where you're not allowed to go outside without a suit on, and Steve wants to go outside with a suit on, which should destroy him. They've already shown you this will destroy him, and they give the most absurd explanation why it won't. Imaginable. And then they do this sequence which is wonderfully absurd, and it's like you can hear the director, you almost hear the director laughing as he's doing it, because it's just like such a send up. And as the film goes on, the characters act more and more cartoonish and sillier, and it gets more and more ridiculous. And then we get to the ending where, because of the stupidity of certain characters, you have 3 Megs and a giant squid, plus these little dinosaurs, all on a island resort. Now, if you've seen the first Meg, there was a brief bit in the island resort. It's almost like they said, we should have done this better. Let's do it again, but do it utterly brutal and kill lots of people there. There's a shot where we're inside the mouth of one of the Megs as they just crunch into the people. And it's just great. It's just so wonderful how they do it. The whole setup of it is just insane. The last 20 minutes is pure, guilty pleasure. It's like everyone said, okay, what do you want to see in this? What would be fun to do? And what's the stupidest thing we can get away with here? And let's do it. Plus the fact that they've got a budget, but not a outrageous budget, means some of the effects aren't great, which just adds to the charm. and you have Statham doing these weird stuff in the ski bike that's just insane, and it's just knowingly stupid, and it just goes on and on, like that you thought were stupid here. Wait till we go further along in this sequence, we're going to go even more stupid. And of course, as I said earlier on, the final death is so insane that it's just wonderful. The whole film is like this year's Moonfall, but in this one, they really knew what they were doing. They knew how dumb it was. I mean, this is the kind of film that the Fast and Furious series would look at and go, "Hey, calm down a bit. You don't have to go this far." But it's perfect because it just goes completely insane. It's just like, yep, we have a script that is not fit for purpose, so we're going to send the whole thing up, and we're just going to do the dumbest movie possible with the most glee. We're going to have some absurd jokes. We're going to have characters behave not just kind of stupidly, but insanely stupid. And then we're going to kill them off in a gratuitous way that's just funny as hell. Like, nobody who's a villain in this film gets out without like a brutal death. It's like this film understands that you want your villains to die in a horrible way. You want your heroes to be beat up a lot, and like it has so many moments of, and in a serious film, you're thinking, what? Because of the way they've set it up in this film, it's like this is wonderful. It's just such a send up of every dumb action movie, and they're so self aware of everything. So it's, if you like this kind of thing, this kind of absurdity, you're gonna have a ball with the Meg 2, but it's like you need a sense of humor. You really do need a sense of humor. Gran Turismo is not as insane as the Meg 2. It couldn't be. For one, Neil Blomkamp, the director, has just made 2 crazy movies, and this is his film where he's showing he's a good boy to the financiers and saying, "Look, I can do something normal," because his last 2 films are Chappie, which was not well received, and then I think it was Demonica or Demonica or something. It's something about a demon in the thing, which is about virtual reality, dreams, the Catholic Church cutting killing of demons. It's utterly insane. I adored it. A lot of people hated it so much. So now he's trying to prove himself he's a good boy. So he does Gran Turismo movie, and it is a lot more sane than his previous movies, which was kind of disappointing for me because I was hoping for some of the insanity. But what can you do? I actually recently rewatched one of his films, Elysium, and it was a lot better than I remembered it being, even though it's still got an ending that doesn't quite work. But this one was like very much the most normal film he's ever done. It really is. It's a sports movie about a guy who's a Gran Turismo player who gets a chance to join the Gran Turismo sports training to actually prove he actually can drive properly. And it's about him going from being a racer on the game to actually be a proper racer. And it has all the tropes. It's like he's got a girl he likes. He's a bit shy. He's got a trainer who's rough and rough to him to get him to reach his potential. He's his own problems with his family. He has to try and get above. He has a crash late in the game that has to rise above. Every cliche you could possibly think of is in this film, but it's done in a heartfelt way. It really does. It's just like one of those things. Is like, okay, we're actually going to take what would be a normal cliched film and actually just do it like genuine, like humor and character stuff. Let's hire some actors who can do it and just play straight and don't be too absurd. And it really works because the racing scenes are very enjoyable. Again, my nephew, this one, he's a racing nut. So he never spotted anything was wrong there. The few crashes you get are wonderfully done, but mainly it's about the racing, how hard it is to race, how hard it is to not crash, how hard it is in your body, how much you have to train so your body's good enough to take care of all the forces coming at you as you go fast. And it's about how hard it is to actually do it, and how this guy actually is a mix of someone who as a good driver, but also because he played Gran Turismo, he actually had worked out what the tracks could do and what it couldn't do, and he approached everything, even the game, with a level of realism that other racers didn't. So when he went up to actually be a driver, he kind of knew a lot of what the problems would be, even though he was naive in lots of other ways. And they actually do this. The cast is smart because they have an actor who plays him, someone who's not, you know, slick. Oh, he's clumsy with dealing with people. He's shy. He's got a sense of humor, but he's not like he doesn't jump into rooms and say, "Hey, look at me." He's actually viewed as very awkward, but he's into what he's into. He's a guy who's into race, and that's it. So you like the character because he's very normal. He's not egotistical. He just wants to be good at what he's doing, and that endears you to him. Plus, he's not slick. He's not like someone who has all the answers. He has to rely on his trainer to actually show him how to do things, and who's gruff and who's it's played by David Harbour, who was in Stranger Things and was that awful Hellboy movie. He's really good in this, and he plays it very straight, but with a sense of humor. He's seen these kind of films before, so he knows what he needs to do. And you get the thing of the bond between them as it grows, as he realizes this guy's actually good. But it's worked in a nice way. It's not worked in a forced way. It's actually just two people who are together for a long period of time, who both are ambitious about this thing, who start to bond and see the good side of each person's personality. And it just becomes this thing of these two guys who actually do develop a bond over time. So it just makes it work because that's the main relationship in the film. He's got a girlfriend character who you don't really need in the film, but it's quite nice to have it there to show there's outside influence. The film does feel a lot long, but there's nothing that you'd say we definitely have to lose that. It's just a case of it maybe we did one more edit through it just to take out little bits here or there. But maybe losing those bits would have taken away some of the charm of the film. So it's like I can take it a bit too long to keep the charm of the film, keep the characters working. So plus it's one of those genres that most of these films feel a little long because you've only got a few areas to hit, and the rest of the time you're going through a formula that isn't very plot based, it's character based, and but you've got the kind of drive to try and get to the next race. So there's the part of it is impatience to get to the next race because on the viewer. So some ways it's not the film's fault, but it might have lost a little bit here or there just in the running time. But it's still a very well made film, but it's in no way an original film. It's just it takes the genre from what it is. It's based on a true life story, but they change little things here or there to make it more dramatic, and it just works. I mean, you don't really need it to be anything too complicated or too clever, and which is Neil Blomkamp's usually has been his problem is he's tried to put too much into his films. This time he's actually kind of stepped back and just put in as much as it's needed. So hopefully that's a thing of he's learned that from this film, so he can maybe go back to doing his more ambitious films, but actually do them in a way that's easy on audience to actually kind of connect with the characters. Because one of the problems he had when he was a younger director was he would throw stuff constantly at you, and I think sometimes he didn't have a chance to really land with the audience as much as it probably could have to make you into the story. But hopefully he's learned that from this one. So both these films are definitely worth seeing. The Gran Turismo, if you can see in the big screen, is better because of the racing scenes. The Meg 2 doesn't matter. Just see it when you can because it's just so funny. It's one of those films that's going to be like a streaming hit. It's going to be one of those films that people watch drunk because it's got so many fun deaths and so many wonderfully silly things in it. You know, and everyone's always having a ball with that one. So these are two they're not. Neither of them are going to be remembered this year as the top films, but they're both really well done, and they're probably films you'd end up watching, you know, and rewatching over the years. So they're those kind of films. So I hope you enjoyed this. That's me for now. I'll be back soon with another video. Bye.